Welcome to the Home Birth After Cesarean podcast. Due to the rate of unnecessary C-sections, the lack of support, and limited options for VBAC moms in the hospital, more and more women are choosing to have their VBAC babies at home. This podcast was created for women to share and listen to stories of home birth after cesarean. I'm your host, Rachel Garrett. Today we're chatting with Megan, and Megan's going to share her two birth stories with us. So Megan, if you just want to give us a little bit of an introduction, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So, like you said, my name's Megan. I'm 26 years old. I live in Texas. I have two children. My oldest, she'll be 4 on the 4th of May. And then I have my littlest one who just turned 1 in March, at the end of March. And so I got married in 2017, and pretty soon after that, after we got married, we decided that, we wanted to start our family. And that is where the struggle just began from there. People don't really tell you that, it takes some time to conceive, even though like you see people conceiving like pretty quickly. They don't tell you that, sometimes it takes a few months on average. And so I wasn't conceiving for, a few months after we had been married. And that was really concerning to me. That was just all I was thinking about, was just, man, I'm still not pregnant. And it wasn't until, so we got married in January, and it wasn't until July I started having some weird things going on. Every morning I would wake up and I would have to go to the bathroom. I would have to, go pee. And right once I did that, I would just get this extremely painful feeling. It was just like clockwork. Every single morning, that's what happened. Like I was crippled over, like crying, just in pain. So I wanted to see some natural doctors, see what they had to say. I ended up getting diagnosed with Hashimoto's, but soon after that, literally like a day after I got that diagnosis, I had that feeling, but it was in the middle of the day, and I could tell that this time it was pretty serious. I started blacking out, and so finally we were just like, all right, we need to go to the ER. And that's when I found out that I actually had an ectopic pregnancy that had ruptured. So my fallopian tube just completely ruptured. They had to go in, and I was devastated because it seemed like it had taken so long for me to finally get pregnant. And then the way I find out is that, it was an ectopic that ruptured. So it was a really traumatic, devastating moment for me. But I think I feel like it kind of all worked out because, then I found out that, I had underlying health issues. I never would have gone to the doctor and found out that I had autoimmune issues. So that was just a whole thing in of itself. A month later, so that happened in July. A month later in August, I found out that I was pregnant again. And so that was kind of scary for me because I was like, oh, what if I lose, my only fallopian tube left? So I went and had a sonogram done, pretty immediate after finding out. Found out that, everything was looking good so far. Everything was smooth sailing after I found out that I was pregnant again. I ended up going to the OB that performed my tubal repair from my rupture. I ended up just seeing her throughout my first pregnancy. I just felt, she knows my case, I'm sure she has, my best interest at heart. There were some red flags that I just didn't kind of see from the beginning. She would tell me, like, she just kind of set it up from the beginning, like, oh, you might not even be able to have, and I know you want to have a natural birth, but you might not even be able to because, you have a small frame. Just little things here and there that she would always say. When I finally got to about 30 weeks or so pregnant, she told me, she was like, so baby is breech still, and so we're just gonna have to go ahead and schedule you a C-section just in case, she doesn't turn. So I was like, okay. So we scheduled the C-section, and I'm doing everything. I'm looking up, the turning babies. I'm seeing a chiropractor, doing all kinds of things, trying to get this baby to turn. And she never does. And so I ended up going into labor by myself. My water just burst. It was right at 40 weeks. My water ruptured. And so I was just trying to play it calm. I had heard that, babies, once your water breaks, like sometimes, just last minute they can turn. So before I went to the hospital, I'm like sitting there like doing inversions, hoping that this baby will turn. So we get to the hospital, they do an ultrasound and they're like, yeah, we're sorry. Baby is still breech. So there's nothing we can do. We're not going to wait to see if the baby will turn last minute because I was progressing pretty quickly from there. So they were like, we're not going to wait to see if baby turns. We're just going to go ahead and wait for an operating room to open up, and we're going to get you in there. So that happened at 11. So first off, I found out also the reason that she had scheduled my C-section. She was actually going out of town. So whenever I got there, she was out of town. And so that played a whole part in her planning my C-section as well. So she wasn't even there for the birth of my firstborn. It was just so weird, just the whole demeanor I had in my birth plan, if I was going to be doing it natural, that, I wanted to go full natural. I don't want an epidural or anything. And so they're not letting me cope with my contractions while we're waiting for the operating room to open up. I can't stand, I can't walk around. They want me sitting down so that baby doesn't descend. And so that's pretty painful, like when you just have to sit there and take it and can't do anything about it. And the nurse, she was like, and to think that you wanted to do this natural. And I was just like, okay, now's not really the time.
Be like, if I was doing this the way I wanted to, I wouldn't just be sitting here in pain anyway.
Exactly.
That's so rude.
I know. I was just like, okay, like I already have to, deal with the fact that my birth plan already is not going as planned. So thank you for that. So yeah, I didn't get into the operating room until, so my water broke at 11. I wasn't in the operating room until 3 a.m. So I had a long time, and things picked up really fast. So I remember like it was just, I was in so much pain that like things were just so blurry. And just when I finally got into the operating room, and then they put the spinal into me, and they were like, do you feel anything? And, they're not really telling me anything. And so like, I shook my head. I was like, no. And they were like, don't shake your head. You have this in your back. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know. Like, you didn't say anything. And then right after that, it was so bad. I started having a reaction, and I started throwing up. I got so sick, and they had to, I was shaking. Just, it was so awful. But I'm so thankful that my husband was there, because it was just, when you're just being cut open and you're awake for it, it's just such a weird, stressful feeling. I was like, I told him, I was like, I just need you to talk to me, talk about anything. I don't care. Just keep my mind off of what's going on, because kind of freaking out here. So he was there talking to me the whole time. And then they finally got her out. It took about 30 minutes all together. They finally got her out, and that was just such a relief.
What kind of breech was she? Do you know?
I don't know exactly. So they got her out again, still not following my birth plan. I wanted, once they had her out, I wanted to have some skin on skin, and like I wanted her there with me, like throughout them closing me up. But instead they went ahead, they cut her cord, and they told my husband, they were like, you go with the baby to the room, and we'll bring your wife up whenever we're done closing her up. And so I was like, okay, like not really what I wanted, but all right. So he went with her into the room, and while I was being being closed up. And I just remember I just kept asking, like, are y'all almost done? Are y'all almost done? I want to hold my baby for the first time. And so, yeah, that was my C-section experience. Thankfully, healing wasn't too bad. Standing up was like the most traumatic thing to me. Like, I just felt like my insides were just going to spill out of me. But as far as healing, thankfully, I didn't have any complications or anything like that. But I'll tell you, like, right after that, I was like, I know I want more children. So I was like, I need to be more prepared. I just need more information. I felt so unprepared with my first. I was like, I will have a natural birth this next time around.
How did that postpartum time go for you? Like after you got home from the hospital and kind of settled in a little bit, were you able to bond with baby and have that time that you wanted?
Yes, I'm so thankful. I had heard just, stories of women who have had C-sections, and because they didn't have that immediate bond, they had, struggles nursing and all kinds of things. I'm so thankful that she was a super easy nurser. Like we still had a really great bond. Like, this was my firstborn, so it was super sweet and special to me. And thankfully I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't have to worry about, oh, now I have to leave my baby and go to work. So I'm thankful, like, just the whole way through, we got to bond, and healing didn't take too long from what I've heard from other ladies. So
was VBAC always on your mind then, just from
yes.
right after that birth?
Yes, because even before my first one, I had told myself I really just want a natural birth. I originally wanted to do a home birth with my first, but with the whole situation, I thought, oh, maybe a home birth isn't for me, since I had this ectopic pregnancy. Maybe I'm meant to do it in the hospital. But then after that whole experience, I was like, man, it was so awful. Nothing went the way I wanted it to. And I'm thankful I didn't have any depression, or I didn't really like dwell on the fact that it didn't go my way. That's just kind of how life is. I just knew, I was like, all right, originally I wanted to do things the natural way. Like, this time we're gonna go. I feel like that's my best bet to get what I want, is to be at home, be in control. I
So
started
you
reading.
wanted a home birth right away too then?
Yeah. So, and like I said, I originally wanted to do a home birth. If I never had that ectopic, I probably would have looked into midwives and having a home birth, but I was just like, maybe not. But right when, after I had my first, I started researching like crazy. I read, Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, and that was really, really eye-opening to me. And I really learned a lot. It really showed me like the cascade of interventions, and it just all made sense to me. And I joined like ICANN and other VBAC support groups, and that's when, like, I started taking what I learned from Ina May's book. And when somebody had like a failed VBAC, I would go in and be like, all right, like, what went wrong? And then it's just right there, you can just see the cascade of interventions. And of course that's not always the case, but more times than not, it was just like, wow, okay, maybe there is something to it. Maybe the stress from having a bunch of strangers in and out of your room, stalling labor, and starting up labor when your body isn't even ready, just all these things that I learned from it. I even started looking into midwives, and that's when I know a lot of people who are familiar with the San Antonio area. They know the San Antonio nurse midwife, Nikki McIver Brown. I looked into her. I messaged her before my daughter was probably like 6 months old. whenever I asked her if she would be able to do a VBAC at home, and we just started talking from there, and I was like, okay, you know what? I think this lady is it. I think this is who I would want to deliver my next baby. So yeah, I didn't even get pregnant the second time around until I had completely weaned my first. I didn't even get my cycle back until I had completely weaned her about a year and a half or so. So like I said in the beginning, how I had autoimmune issues. After I had my first and I had weaned her, I started getting really, really sick again. And after I got my cycle back, I wasn't conceiving. So I was like, man, what if I don't get pregnant again? Like, it's just this whole thing again. So I had to kind of start, worrying about my health. And I didn't get pregnant until my daughter had just turned 3, I think. Yeah, she was about to turn 3, and then I finally got pregnant again. But like I said, it just seemed like such a long time. I was just so impatient. I just, seeing everyone just, conceive quickly, and I'm just like, why can't I conceive? So finally, I get pregnant again, and I actually went to go meet the midwife, and I was like, it is so crazy just what a difference just meeting with her and talking, just the whole demeanor versus, a traditional in-hospital OB. Like, the difference was so crazy. I felt like she was a friend. I didn't feel like, I'm just going in to see a doctor. And so I really enjoyed that relationship with her. It was like night and day. So her office is like basically in a little house, and midway into my pregnancy, she actually ended up, at first she was just doing in-home births, but then midway she got a new setup and turned it into a birth center. So now she had that option to do in-home or birth center. But I was still pretty set on doing my home birth. So yeah, my pregnancy with my second was very smooth, just no complaints really. I know like a lot of people have like issues, like their scar feels weird, and I think I was so it just had been so long since my C-section that I didn't have any feelings or anything weird going on with my scars or anything.
Was there anything that you had done specifically to prepare for a home birth after your C-section? Like any birth prep or anything like that?
Basically, so I was still doing research. That's when I was, looking into, it was very important for me. You don't want to just type in, like natural birth or anything like that, or VBACs, because sometimes like you get the traumatic experiences. So I made sure to look into nothing but good, positive, success stories. But at the same time, like I knew in the back of my head, there, just like in a hospital setting, if this was my first pregnancy, like there's still a little bit of a risk, like something can happen. I'm not in complete control. So I knew in the back of my head, something can go wrong. Something can, not necessarily go as planned, but I know, if done right, just how successful that it can be, that, most women can go on to have a successful VBAC. So I was just looking into just positive VBAC success stories. There were some people in my life who didn't really understand. They thought that I just wanted a home birth because I wanted to be like a hippie type of thing. They're like, oh, home births are for hippies. And I'm like, no, no, it's not. People were doing it long before, and it was just a completely normal thing. And I knew that in the comfort of my home, that was my best bet at having a successful VBAC. I just had to kind of shut those people down and just be like, hey, I really don't want to talk about it with you, because if I start thinking about it, then I'm going to start worrying. I just tried to stay in a good mindset the whole way through. Definitely lots of prayer, just, asking the Lord to just get me through it, just that I could go on and have a successful VBAC. And then I made sure, like, towards the end of my pregnancy, I got a bunch of positive, like, affirmations, and I just posted them everywhere to just kind of remind myself, like, hey, you can do this. Lots of people have done this. You got this. So I just tried to stay as optimistic as possible throughout the whole thing, and to know that, lots of people have done it.
And those boundaries are important too. How you talked about, like, not listening to all the negative stuff that people want to pour onto you anytime you're pregnant or planning something that they think is wrong. It's important to have those boundaries and draw your line there too.
Yes. And I feel, because, I didn't want to argue with them, I just, just politely said, hey, I really don't want to talk about it. I don't want to stress about it. I'm in a good mindset about it right now. And so I feel like, because I had that attitude, after I had my VBAC, those people, they then saw, they came around and they were like, okay, like, we see now why you did what you did. Like, we have a better understanding, and we know, once they saw, the atmosphere that I was in when I was in labor, I feel like they were like, okay, like, we get it. We see now. For the ladies out there, that, because I know that it's so common for people to turn it down, that just, if you just gotta just knock it down before they even get started, and they might come around. They might understand later on. Side note, my midwife sent me mid-pregnancy to see a specialist because of my thyroid issues. She wanted to make sure that, it wasn't affecting the baby, because when you have thyroid issues, then it can affect your baby when they're developing inside of you. So she sent me to go see a high-risk specialist just one time, and the whole demeanor changed whenever they found out that I was having a home birth instead of, seeing one of their OBs. The doctor, he said to me, he was like, well, don't you know that your home is for pizza delivery, not baby delivery? And it's just crazy, like, people's mindset for home births.
He should read the book, Babies Are, or what is it? The evidence-based birth book.
Yes.
Babies Aren't Pizzas, or whatever it is. Babies are born, not delivered.
It's so funny, because I just ordered one of those. When I saw that shirt that they have, I was like, that is just so perfect. Mm-hmm. Like, someone literally said that to me. I was mind blown that he said that. And my husband, he was there in the room, and he was just like, what in the world? Like, everyone just got so negative so quickly when they found out that I wasn't having it at their hospital, and that I was just going to be doing it in the comfort of my home. Yeah, people just have this weird, I guess, stigma about home births.
And I think some of it truly just comes from lack of education. Like, we don't talk about home birth the way that we talk about hospital birth. I mean, you just assume everyone's going to have their baby in the hospital because that's what everybody does. Right. And you're right, there is a stigma around it, and that's unfortunate, because there really shouldn't be. I mean, right. There's studies coming out now that home birth is actually safer for low-risk women than being in the hospital is. I don't remember the exact name of it. I can link it with the episode or share it on some of the social media platforms, but there was just a recent one done, I want to say at the beginning of this year, that compared hospital birth to home birth, and home birth was actually safer.
It was like a Sunday, and we were at church, and I was sitting there, and I realized that it still felt like Braxton Hicks, but I noticed that they were, instead of, just every once in a while, I noticed that they were pretty consistent. And so I looked at my husband, and I was like, hey, I think this might be it. Like, I think something's going on here, because, my Braxton Hicks are now starting to become regular. So he was like, well, go home. What are you doing? And I was like, no, like, I'm not in pain or anything like that. I'm just gonna, stay and wait it out. And so that whole Sunday, they just became regular, but they still weren't painful. They were just happening more often than they were. And this was exactly at 40 weeks. I was just about to be 40 weeks. I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, what if I never go into labor on my own? I know that's a thought in a lot of people's heads, but your body will eventually start, more than likely, to go into labor. And just a reminder, your estimated due date is just that, it's an estimation. So just because you might be, quote unquote, 40 weeks really in gestation, maybe you're a little sooner than that. And so that's why it seems like it's taking forever. But that was just a little side note. But I went to bed that night, nothing really progressed from it, but, I was just still having contractions. And then Monday, it dwindled down, but I realized that my Braxton Hicks were no longer Braxton Hicks. They were picking up in frequency, but they were still just very, very sporadic. And so that night I was on my little, my exercise ball, just trying to do some things there and seeing if I could maybe pick things up. And that night it got so bad. I was in so much pain. I did not go to sleep that night. I was like, all right, this is it. And so it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I get into the shower and I'm like, okay, maybe some, warm water will help me calm down. I get in the shower, and when I get out, things just completely halt. I'm exhausted. And the next thing I know, my toddler is coming down the stairs asking for breakfast. I had, spent this whole night awake having these painful contractions, and then just nothing of it. And so I was like, this is so discouraging. Like, when I actually do go into labor, am I going to have the energy to do this? And so throughout the day, I was able to, things finally, died down. I was able to take a nap, and then the next night, it started picking up again. And I was just thinking to myself, if this is not it, if this is another night of false labor, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I was doing pretty good at coping with my contractions this time around, because I knew what to expect. I was pretty calm and collected, and my husband, he kept asking me, because my timer was showing that things were pretty consistent, but in the back of my head, I knew how painful the contractions were with my firstborn. I was waiting for it to get to that intensity. So he kept asking me, like, hey, do I need to call Nikki now? I'm going to call Nikki. And I'm like, no, this is not it yet. Like, don't call Nikki. Don't tell her to come. Like, she'll probably be here for a while if you do that. Not that she would mind, but, I just, I don't know, in the back of my head, I was like, I don't want her to just like sit here for nothing for this to, maybe be false labor again. And so he goes to bed, and things are picking up again. I get in the shower, and things die down yet again. And I was just like, no way. Like, this is false labor again. So I go and I lay down in our guest bedroom so that my husband can get sleep and I can get sleep, and then I start realizing that they're coming back. So I'm waking up like every 10 minutes. I didn't even know that it was possible to sleep between contractions, but I was doing it. And every 10 minutes or so, I would wake up, and my husband, he was like, hey, like, I can hear you upstairs. Like, do I need to call Nikki yet? And I was like, no, it's still not time. Like, don't do it. He was like, I feel like we need to. And I was like, just don't call her. So things pick back up. It's now like 6 a.m, I think. And then I realized that I've lost my mucus plug. I've had my bloody show, and now I can't even really speak. So I call my husband between a contraction, and I'm like, I need you to call Nikki now. Tell her I'm ready to go. And he was like, okay, she wants to know, how frequent your contractions are. I was like, they're so frequent that I can't even tell where they stop and end. I was like, I don't know. So he relays the information. She's like, okay. She's like, I will, I'm in the shower. I'm coming over. I end up making it downstairs because that's where I wanted to have the baby. So I'm downstairs just rolling on my exercise ball. She finally makes it over. It's now 7 a.m. Originally, I didn't want any checks or anything like that. And so when she walks in, she's like, do you want me to check you or no? And that's what I love about her. Just the whole way through, it's all about what you want. When in the hospital, they didn't care what I wanted. And even if I told them what I wanted, half the time they didn't even honor that. But with her, it's what do you want? So she asked me, she's like, do you want me to check you? And I was like, you know what? I guess, just go ahead. My biggest fear was to get checked and then, find out I'm only, 3 centimeters dilated. But I was like, I'm in so much pain. This has been going on for so long. Just go ahead and check me. So she checks me and she's like, girl, she was like, you are 9.5 centimeters with a bulging bags of water. Like, we're almost ready to go. And I'm just thinking, praise the Lord, like this is about to come to an end. So I get in the shower, and that was, it's just crazy just how helpful that was to me. Just to have that warm water just falling on me. So that really helped me cope through the last end. And so she's checking me, she's checking the baby's heartbeat while I'm in the shower. And she was like, all right, so baby's not really liking the position you're in. I'm just, on my hands and knees in the shower. Baby's not really liking the position you're in. Heart rate is a little low, nothing to be concerned of yet. She was like, but, because that is an issue, she was like, we need to try and get this baby out as quickly as possible so that we don't need to go to the hospital. So we get out of the shower, and I never thought that I wanted to do this, but she was like, she brought in a birthing stool, and she's like, maybe you want to try this. And I was like, you know what, whatever you think will be faster at this point. I just want this baby out of me. So she brings out this birthing stool, and it just took just a few pushes. My water broke, and then out came baby. And I'll never forget that moment, because just as I was pushing, you get to that point where you're like, I can't do it. And so I told Nikki, I was like, Nikki, I don't think I can do it. I'm so tired. Like, I don't think I can do it. And she was like, these are your options. She was like, we can go to the hospital right now, and they can do a repeat C-section, or she's like, you can do this. She's like, I know you can do this. And so just those last pushes, I was just yelling in my house with my sister-in-law and my daughter. They were out of the room, and they could hear me, and I was just like, I can do it. and then finally I was like, I did it. But just the feeling after, I was just like, man, I had so many people tell me that I couldn't do it, and here I am, I did it. It was like the most exhilarating feeling that I've ever had, and I just felt on cloud 9. It was amazing. Healing was just, again, just night and day from the hospital to being at home. Everything I had was at home. I was able to sleep without people coming in and out bothering me. Praise the Lord, didn't have any tearing or anything like that. So it was just, I just feel like that birth was the picture perfect birth that I needed. And it also helped me heal mentally. I feel just from, in the back of my head, my failed first birth plan. So that was just the physical and mental healing that I needed. And it was really exhilarating.
How long was your entire labor from beginning to end?
Not including, all of the false labor. It was about from 10 Tuesday evening, and then I ended up having her at 10:09 Wednesday morning. So I'd say a perfect 12 hours or so.
Do you remember how long you pushed for? Or did you experience any like fetal ejection reflex or anything like that?
I don't remember. I don't think I had any fetal ejection. But I think I pushed for 25, 30 minutes or so. So it was just kind of all like a blur. Things were happening so quickly. So even though, it wasn't, I guess, immediate, it felt pretty immediate.
So what did that postpartum time look like? And do you remember anything about the birth of the placenta?
Yeah, so the birth of the placenta, that was pretty that came pretty quickly too, maybe 15 minutes or so after my daughter was born. And it didn't feel, I know some people said that their placenta hurt, but it happened pretty quickly, and it I didn't feel anything. It She was like, okay, it's out, and I was like, okay, like I didn't even really feel it. So, and then as far as healing, since I didn't have any tears or anything like that, I mean, within a couple of days, I was just basically up and back to normal. So it was way different than going from feeling like my insides are about to come out of me from my C-section to just, being up and about in a few days. That was really, really weird to me. I wasn't expecting it to be anything like that. It definitely went a lot smoother than I had expected. And I another like thing that I told myself is, because my husband and I, we want a pretty, large family. And so I just kind of, I said in the back of my mind, like, I have to make this work. This has to work, because, I can't just have a bunch of C-sections, that it's just going to get more dangerous. And my OB, she was like, I wouldn't go past 3 C-sections. And so, I mean, I wouldn't want to be cut open over and over again. So in the back of my head, I was like, this has to work, because I don't want to be cut open again. I want more children. I don't want to have to put a number on how many I can have. So thankful that I mean, it really was just the picture perfect, smooth sailing home birth experience. And not everyone experiences that, but I'm so thankful that everything just went according to plan. And even though some things changed, I never saw myself. I was literally in the doorway of my bathroom on a birthing stool. I never saw myself doing that. But I'm so thankful that it went the way it did. I'm so happy with it.
Is there anything that you would want women who are either looking at options or currently planning for their home birth to know, or anything that you kind of learned along the way with your birth stories?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing, I think, is to make sure that your provider is 100% on board with what you want. Make sure you have a good support system. If there are people who aren't very supportive, I don't recommend having them over during your home birth, because I mean, that's one thing that my midwife told me. She was like, I've seen it so many times where, just somebody comes in and they're just, while you're in labor, and they're just not really on board. And I've seen, the labor stall. And then she was like, I have to, politely say, like, hey, like, maybe you should run and go grab some food or something. And she was like, and then when that person leaves, then, their labor picks back up. So, don't have people there that are not on board with you, and especially your provider. Having a doula or is a big thing. I didn't technically have like an official doula, but my sister was there. She's a licensed massage therapist, and she had attended one of her friends' births, doing the same thing, even though she's not an actual doula. So having someone there to act as a doula, I feel like, is also very important. Someone, one, who can back up your plan, and then 2, can help you cope through your labor and your contractions and everything. And just try to stay positive. Don't look into the things that can go wrong, because it will freak you out. And I mean, most times it does go pretty smoothly. Yeah.
And what you said about a doula too. I mean, I think it's important to remember that even if someone's not like a certified professional doula or anything like that, it's really just the support that you need.
Yes.
Someone who believes in you and believes in what you're doing and is just there to support you no matter what is what the main benefit from a doula is. Like obviously doulas have training and knowledge about birth and are familiar with the birth process and all of that, but sometimes you just need like your own personal cheerleader to just be there and hold your hand and help you through the entire thing. Well, thank you so much for being willing to share your stories with us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm very happy to share with you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Home Birth After Cesarean podcast. Make sure to subscribe, leave a rating, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you're interested in sharing your home birth after cesarean story, send us an email at hbacpodcast@gmail.com. See you next week.